Hi, welcome back to Azure Terraformer. It's release day, Friday release day. So today I'm just going to be looking at the release notes of version 3.45 of the Azure RM provider to see what goodies we have in our bat belt this week. So the first one, there's not a lot of new resources this time, but the first one looks kind of significant. I feel like I've been waiting on this one for a while. Auth v2 for web apps. I can't remember the details, but I remember a while ago I was using the Azure App Service and Auth v2 was like kind of a sticking point. So this sounds promising. So for web app, so these all these resources, the web app looks like it's probably a block that's been added to the web app resource and the web app slot resource for both Windows and Linux workloads. And what can it do? Not a whole lot of details here. Maybe if we go look at one of these things. I don't know why I picked the Windows one. Let's look at, they don't even have the docs published yet to that source. Interesting. Okay, well, definitely something to check out. I think maybe the documentation is just in the code base. Where is it? Docs. I mean, there's a make docs. Publish contributor docs. README. Oh, this is just the contributor guidelines. Website. Docs. R. Here we go. Linux web app. All right, let's look at this. Auth settings v2. Okay, so we're looking at the documentation as it is in the source code that was just released. They haven't even uploaded the documentation of the registry website yet. Which I don't know, maybe there's a delay. This is my first time doing one of these videos, so we'll see. So auth settings v2 as opposed to v1. So this auth settings block is like the v1 block. So you can enable it. There's a runtime version. Defaults to 1. That's kind of counterintuitive. Like if it's auth settings v2, unless this is just like, I think this is like auth settings v2 is like a feature that rolled out to Azure App Service, and they just called it like version 2 of the authentication and authorization mechanism. So what can we do? So we have Apple support, Active Directory support. We have static web app. We have custom OpenID Connect, and a lot of the login providers. Let's go look at this one. So this is a new v2 block. So looks like you get Azure AD control. What's the difference though between this block and this block? It looks like, well, there's a lot more settings that you can do. Let me just pop this to the side here. See if this works. There we go. And then let's just look for auth v2. Okay, so same. So I'm most interested in Azure Active Directory authentication, just because that I mostly build enterprise applications and work with business apps. So I'm not using the socials, but so that's why I'm kind of curious about what changed in the Azure Active Directory support. Okay. So it looks like maybe tenant auth endpoint. So maybe this this now enables us to do multi-tenant applications. Client secret setting name. So the client secret. So it looks like they used to let you set the client secret in this configuration as opposed to creating an Azure App Service client secret setting, and then in the new version they're just saying, okay, put it in the settings and then point to it. So you can either use a client secret or a certificate. Now it looks like there's most of the new attributes are these JWT allowed groups. This looks like there's a lot, JWT allowed groups. This would be like authorization. So you can do a lot. There's a lot more control that you can do about authorization, allowed entities. I think this goes into like can it be humans? Can it be users? Allowed applications. That's interesting. So yeah, these are all controls over the authorization. So previously in this block, I guess it just provided basic auth-n. You still have auth-n, but we have a lot more auth-z features. Okay, that's cool. New resources, 2 new resources, all related to Azure Site Recovery, Hyper-V Replication Policy, and Replication Policy Association. I'm not familiar with these, but if we go look at my docs are over here now. Is this a resource? I can't remember. Yeah, it's a new resource. So Azure Site Recovery. Let's just look for Site Recovery. Okay, Hyper-V. Okay, yeah, it must not have come up because I was looking at these things. Okay, let me just go to the Policy Association, because usually when there's like a sub resource, the documentation also includes the parent resource. Yeah, okay, cool. So this replication policy looks like it in and of itself is a sub resource that gets attached to a recovery vault, and the recovery vault is right here. So this is a recovery vault site. So are we referencing the site? So you create a recovery services vault, and then you create a Hyper-V site. And then on your Hyper-V site, you within the vault, see it's attaching the replication policy to the vault. Okay, so that's interesting. And then it's attaching, then this association resource is going to link the policy that we declared here, that we attach to the vault itself to the site. So I would imagine this structure implies you can have a whole bunch of different policies, all store them within your vault, and then you can have a one-to-many relationship between your policies and the sites that you have. So there's a one-to-many between the vault and the Hyper-V sites, and by the naming convention, I presume that there's other types of sites here as well. I think we saw that on the documentation list. There's probably like a vSphere site and like different hypervisors, right, that are there. Okay, cool. I don't do a lot of the infra stuff. I do more app dev stuff, but I do have some experience doing data center migrations and stuff using Azure Site Recovery. So it's kind of interesting that we're continuing to expand the Azure Site Recovery service and Hyper-V support. That's cool. Okay, enhancements. Let's see here. Looks like, so as you may know, the azurerm provider can do nothing that the Azure Go as the Azure SDK for Go. I don't know what the name is, but if the Azure SDK for Go can't do it, then the Azure Terraform provider won't do it. If you log an issue and say, oh, the Terraform provider can't do this, and it's not supported in the Go SDK, they're gonna close the issue, or I don't know, like defer the issue until the Go SDK supports it. So yeah, I've experienced that personally. So looks like they just increased some basic stuff in terms of the Go SDK here. Automation, again Go SDK. Okay, compute capacity reservations. Okay, so a lot of these are just Go SDK related. Let's skip through these. Kusto, yeah, okay. Backup policy, backup VM policy. Add support for instant restore resource group. Okay. Don't have a lot of experience with Azure backup. Definitely not that deep. Express route connection, inbound route map ID, enable private link fastpath properties. Interesting. Don't know a lot about that stuff. Kusto cluster, custom managed key. Now, we use a lot of Kusto clusters internally at Microsoft. So that's interesting. Always like to see more support for ADX, Azure Data Explorer, or Kusto. Kusto is the resource name. And sometimes you'll see this and it gets confusing because Microsoft likes to rename things. What used to be Kusto, on day zero, is now Azure Data Explorer, has been rebranded Azure Data Explorer. The Azure resource provider doesn't just go rename all the resources. That would be bad. So a lot of times you'll see some of these old names in here, and you kind of have to know what the resource is in order to look it up. Now, the same would be true in ARM. If ARM has a name of a resource type, it's going to be the same. So you'll have to do that mapping anyway. So this is not a problem that's unique to Terraform in any stretch of the imagination. So anyways, azurerm Linux virtual machines strengthen validation for admin password. Not really sure what that means. Maybe they're just checking like the password. Oh, I see. So this is nice. So this is basically a client-side feature such that we don't have Terraform apply failures that just bork everything. So if you put in a password that's like ABCD1234, the Azure API, the ARM API, is going to fail because it's going to validate your password complexity and it's going to say, sorry, that's not going to work. So if you naively did this in your Terraform and ran Terraform apply, boom, you're going to get rejected on the Terraform apply. Now that could ruin your day. Of course, you'd have to go make an update and then rerun Terraform apply. But then again, if we can avoid having partial state deployments, we're gonna try that our best. So fully supportive of these client-side updates here. This is nice. Postgres flexible server. Man, a lot has been changing with the support for these open source databases, and I haven't fully kept up with it just because mostly I've used Cosmos DB. So I'm definitely gonna have to check out all the cool things happening with Postgres and all that. I think Cosmos DB even has a Postgres data type now. It's Cosmos DB is becoming the Pac-Man of scalable databases, man. It just add support for Mongo, add support for Gremlin, add support for Postgres, everything. It's crazy. Media streaming endpoint. I almost did a project with media streaming, which would have been really cool, but and I had delusions of grandeur of creating a video on demand service. I think somebody already built one like that where I think it's Submarine or Periscope, where basically you allow normal human beings to just be have their own TV channel where they just live stream. So it's kind of like YouTube only for just live streaming. Somebody built that. I had delusions like, oh yeah, like I should build a service like that. This is before that even existed. I mean, it's not a huge leap because you got YouTube, which is just video on demand. Of course, video now has live streaming and all that, but so I was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that with Azure media streaming services. Anyways, add support for classic VMware replication. I'm sure some VMware admins out there are happy about that. All right, bug fixes. Anything of interest? That sounds bad. Okay, so this is private networking on like web apps, Azure App Service. Like if you're referencing the Azure App Service, but why would you even need the virtual network subnet ID on the Azure App Service? I'm kind of interested by that. Let's go look at the data source here. Linux web app. When would you use the virtual network ID? Oh, I see. So yeah, it's not something that you pass in. See, that's why I was confused. It's basically like, okay, I want to get a reference to my Azure App Service so that I can find out what VNet ID is on it. And apparently that was not returning the right subnet ID. Subnet ID, not VNet. So, okay. So they fixed that. Okay, that's cool. Redis cache patch schedules can be found. Interesting. Not quite sure what that is. Batch pool. Set user assigned ID for Azure Blob file system correctly. Okay, I don't really use batch pool or IoT that much anymore. I haven't used IoT stuff for years. Kubernetes cluster. Okay, prevent crash when security profile is null. Ooh, that sounds nasty. Log analytics workspace. Prevent force new when skew is LA cluster. I don't even know what LA cluster is. I'll have to go look that up. And yeah, I don't really use Azure Monitor diagnostic setting. The log analytics destination type property is not typo. Anybody out there want to get a street cred submitting a pull request to the Azure RM provider? You can go fix this typo and you will be on the commit history. Congratulations. Then defaulting to Azure Diagnostics. The log analytics destination type property is not computer, rather than defaulting to Azure Diagnostics on new resources. I don't even know what that means. What are we talking about here? I use this one a lot. And what was the property? It's the log analytics destination type. Okay. Possible values are Azure Diagnostics. I see. Log analytics workspace will go into resource-specific tables instead of the legacy Azure Diagnostics table. Ooh. This might be really cool, because one of the things that I found about the logs that you dump into log analytics is like, it seems like everything goes into one big table and you've got a query in that table. But then the UI of log analytics has these individual tables that look like there should be stuff in there. So yeah, this sounds good. What does it default to? It defaults to Azure Diagnostics. Yeah. I'm gonna have to play around with this dedicated setting because I like the sound of that. Absolutely. So what do they do here? Destination type property is not computer. I don't know. I don't even know what they're trying to say here. Maybe somebody was like typing on the wrong like window and they accidentally typed to computer, in here is something, and they overwrote something. I have no idea what's going on. Rather than defaulting to Azure Diagnostics on new resources. Okay, so cool. I don't know what they're trying to do there, but I definitely want to go check out this dedicated setting because I would love it if log analytics would like dump Azure Monitor would dump logs into distinct tables, so that everything's not just in one big bag. So yeah, that sounds cool. Well, anyways, kind of a nice release. I mean, they do releases weekly, so this is you can't expect like mountains. But I think the big highlights are this Azure App Service v2, and some bug fixes on it looks like bug fixes on AKS and App Service. Those are most interesting to me. And it looks like a new version of the Golang SDK for Azure, which hopefully should unlock and unblock a number of other issues in the Azure RM provider. So anyways, I'm trying this out. I don't know if I'll do this every week, but I usually check the release notes. I get, this is starred, I watch it, and I get an email every week that tells me this, and I usually peruse this just to see what's going on, what's new, because Terraform the Azure RM provider for Terraform is an open source project. So, and that's the biggest gripe that every Terraform naysayer has, is like, oh, it's open source, doesn't have day zero support for, but it's a very active community. People are working on it, and they're fixing bugs, and they're adding new features, and they're on that treadmill. So it's pretty cool. And if you know Golang, or you want to learn Golang, I highly recommend go set up a VM and pull down the source code and see if you can submit a pull request and get it approved. So contribute back to the community. Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, signing off from Azure Terraformer. Thanks for viewing. Make sure you like and subscribe this video if you find it useful, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.